Have you ever sat across from people who were smiling politely while secretly planning to destroy your family? I did. And the worst part? They had no idea I understood every word they were saying. My name is Arthur Bennett. I was 72 years old, retired, and for the last decade my entire world had revolved around my daughter Emily. Since my wife Margaret passed away, Emily had become the center of my life. She was 31, brilliant, independent, and a successful architect. More importantly, she had finally found someone she believed she could build a future with. His name was Sebastian Keller. That evening, Sebastian's parents had flown from Germany to America to meet our family before the wedding. We sat inside an expensive steakhouse, surrounded by crystal glasses, soft music, and waiters who moved silently between tables. Sebastian had always described me to his parents as a simple retired mechanic. I didn't correct him. If they thought I was an ordinary old man, I was perfectly happy to let them. All I wanted was for Emily to be loved. Halfway through dinner, Emily excused herself. The instant she disappeared around the corner, something changed. Sebastian's mother, Helena, leaned toward him. His father, Friedrich, lowered his voice. Then they switched into rapid German. They smiled directly at me while they spoke, completely convinced I couldn't understand. I kept cutting my steak. Then Helena laughed. She called Emily an unrefined stepping stone. Friedrich joked that Emily's American innocence would be useful for Sebastian's immigration situation. My hand stopped for half a second. Then Sebastian leaned closer to his parents. He said they only needed to endure the performance a little longer. Once Emily signed the startup loan paperwork, he would push me completely out of their lives. The old man is clueless, he laughed. Something cold settled inside my chest. Because Sebastian didn't know who he was talking to. I had spent 7 years stationed in Munich with the U.S. Army. After that, I spent 30 years working in international logistics, negotiating contracts throughout Germany. German wasn't a language I barely understood. I spoke it fluently. Better than Sebastian. I kept my expression blank. Then Emily returned, smiling brightly, completely unaware of what had just happened. When the bill arrived, Sebastian performed his usual fake reach for his wallet. I calmly picked up the folder. I looked directly at his parents. Then, in flawless German, I said, "Don't worry about the bill. The clueless old man has it covered. Enjoy your stepping stone." Sebastian froze. His mother's fork hit the plate. His father's mouth fell open. And suddenly, nobody was smiling anymore. I stood up, kissed Emily on the cheek, and walked out. I thought the truth would be obvious. It wasn't. Emily hadn't understood a single word of German. All she had seen was her father suddenly say something harsh to her future in-laws and leave the most important dinner of her life. She caught me near the valet stand. "Dad, what did you say?" Her voice wasn't angry at first. It was confused. I looked at her and felt something inside me break. "These people aren't who you think they are, Emily. What does that mean?" I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to repeat every insult, every laugh, every disgusting plan. But before I could explain, Sebastian came running outside. His face looked devastated. He wrapped an arm around Emily and immediately started performing. He claimed his mother had used an old Bavarian expression. According to him, Emily was their foundation stone, their anchor. And the immigration comment? Just an awkward joke about paperwork. It was brilliant. He took poison and poured sugar over it. Then he looked at me and attacked. He accused me of being a bitter, lonely father who couldn't accept that his daughter was growing up. He said I was sabotaging Emily's happiness because I was afraid of losing her. Then he used the one weapon he knew would hurt most. He mentioned Margaret. "Your wife would be ashamed of this," he told me. My chest tightened. Emily looked at me differently. I could see doubt forming behind her eyes. 4 weeks remained until the wedding. She desperately wanted to believe Sebastian was the man she loved. Finally, she whispered, "If you can't accept him, Dad, maybe you shouldn't come to the wedding." I stared at her. She continued, "Not until you apologize to Sebastian and his parents." Then came the sentence that hurt more than anything else. "Mom would be ashamed of you." For 72 years I had endured losses, failures, disappointments, and grief. Nothing compared to that moment. Over Emily's shoulder, Sebastian lowered his head. Then I saw it. A tiny smile. He had won. He had isolated me from my daughter. But he made one mistake. He assumed silence meant surrender. I lowered my shoulders. I told Emily I'd give her space. Then I drove home. For 4 days I played the defeated father. I sent Emily a simple apology. I promised not to interfere with the wedding. I acted broken. But behind that performance, I was thinking. Watching. Waiting. A man who had spent decades negotiating ruthless international contracts doesn't panic when the other side raises the stakes. He gathers information. And Sebastian had just given me something priceless. Time. I didn't need to destroy him immediately. I needed Emily to discover the truth herself. Because if I simply accused Sebastian again, he would make me look crazy. So I waited. And on the 4th day, my patience finally paid off. It started with a piece of paper hiding underneath a fruit bowl, and that piece of paper changed everything. It was raining when I found it. I had been cleaning my kitchen, trying to keep my hands busy. Under the fruit bowl, beneath several pieces of old mail, was a thick cream-colored document folded into thirds. I recognized the paper immediately. Sebastian had once bragged about documents from European investors. I had ignored him. Now I unfolded it. I put on my glasses. Then I started reading. It wasn't an investment letter. It was a final notice from a corporate bank in Munich. The language was precise. Cold, legal. The bank demanded immediate repayment of more than 400,000 euros. Then I saw the word that made my stomach tighten. Fraud. The loan had apparently been secured with fabricated collateral and falsified financial projections. His accounts had been frozen. A criminal referral had been threatened. And the deadline? 2 weeks. 3 days after Emily's wedding. I sat silently at the kitchen table. Suddenly, everything made sense. Sebastian wasn't rushing toward marriage because he was deeply in love. He was running from a debt clock, and Emily was his escape route. I photographed every page. Then I locked the original away. After that, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in 5 years. Victoria Hayes. She was the most ruthless corporate attorney I'd ever worked with. More importantly, she had known Emily since childhood. When I told her the situation involved my daughter, she didn't hesitate. Come to my office. 20 minutes later, I placed the document in front of her. She read it carefully. Then she looked at me. Fraud. That single word confirmed what I feared. Sebastian wasn't an entrepreneur suffering from bad luck. He was hiding something much darker. Victoria immediately contacted an investigator in Munich, a former intelligence officer. She told him to uncover everything. Bank records, police files, business associates, travel history, financial transactions. Everything. Then Victoria asked me one question. What does Sebastian expect to receive when he marries Emily? I didn't understand at first. Then she reminded me of Margaret's trust. My wife had spent the final months of her life building an inheritance for Emily. $500,000. The money was scheduled to become available on Emily's 32nd birthday or on her wedding day, whichever came first. And there was a marital clause. If Emily married before her birthday, the money could become marital property. Sebastian didn't need Emily to love him forever. He only needed to marry her at the right time. Suddenly, the fake story about his grandparents being ill made sense. The wedding date had been pushed forward. The urgency wasn't romantic. It was financial. He needed Emily's signature on paperwork disguised as immigration documents. But those documents weren't innocent. They were designed to give him control over her inheritance. I stared at Victoria. This isn't a wedding, I whispered. She nodded. No. It's a financial takeover. And somewhere in Munich, Sebastian was probably celebrating. He thought the old man had been defeated. He didn't know the investigation had already begun. By Thursday, Victoria's investigator had uncovered the truth. There was no startup, no brilliant entrepreneur, no European business empire. Sebastian had been an accountant in Germany, and he had stolen nearly 2 million euros from a Bavarian logistics company through shell companies. When the investigation closed in, he fled to America on a tourist visa. His parents weren't wealthy either. Their manufacturing business had been propped up with money connected to Sebastian's theft. Now that business was collapsing. They weren't visiting America to celebrate their son's marriage. They were waiting for Emily's inheritance to rescue all of them. Then Victoria showed me something even worse. Photographs. Sebastian was standing in a Munich beer garden with a woman named Nina, his real fiancé. 2 years together. Emails revealed his actual plan. Marry Emily, drain her trust, secure his immigration status, then divorce her, and eventually bring Nina to America using the money stolen from Margaret's legacy. I felt anger rise inside me, but I forced it down. Victoria offered to hand everything to federal authorities immediately. I refused. Not because I wanted to protect Sebastian. I wanted to protect Emily. If he were arrested immediately, he could become the victim in her eyes. She might spend years wondering whether her father had destroyed the man she loved. I needed her to see the mask fall herself, so I built a trap. I called Sebastian. I asked him to come to my house alone. I made my voice weak, defeated, broken. When he arrived, I dimmed the lights and placed Margaret's photograph on my desk. I poured 2 glasses of untouched scotch. Then I apologized. I told Sebastian I'd been wrong. I said grief had made me suspicious. I told him I was afraid of losing Emily. He listened. And then he smiled. He believed every word. So I gave him what he wanted. I offered him $500,000 of my own money. One condition. Emily's trust had to remain untouched. The transaction would be documented as a legitimate investment. Sebastian didn't hesitate. He shook my hand. "I'm glad we understand each other," he said. He thought he had just defeated me. He didn't know Victoria had written the contract. Page 1 looked boring. Page 2 looked even more boring. But page 3 contained a federal financial disclosure. By signing it, Sebastian swore that he had no pending criminal investigations anywhere in the world. Beside it was another clause, a permanent marital asset waiver. If he married Emily, he would have no claim to her trust. Sebastian signed every page. He didn't read. He didn't ask questions. He only stared at the money. Later, we obtained proof of his arrogance. The moment he left my driveway, he called his parents. He laughed. He called me a stupid old mechanic. He told them I had folded. His parents urged him to sign immediately. He did. And just like that, Sebastian unknowingly signed the document that would destroy the future he had planned. The rehearsal dinner was held in a grand hotel ballroom. 50 guests, crystal chandeliers, candlelight, champagne. Everyone was there to celebrate what they believed was a beautiful marriage. Sebastian stood at the center of the room like a king. He told stories about his imaginary company. His parents laughed proudly. Whenever they thought nobody was listening, they switched into German and mocked the hotel. I sat quietly at the end of the table. Watching, waiting. Emily looked happy. That was the hardest part. She had no idea that the man standing beside her had planned to steal the inheritance her mother had left for her. Then, Emily stood and gave a toast. She talked about trust, honesty, building a marriage on truth. Every word felt like a knife. Because I knew the truth, and I knew that by the end of the evening, she would know it too. Then the best man announced the father of the bride. I stood, but I didn't carry a speech. I carried a dark leather folder. I looked at Emily. "My daughter," I began. "Your mother spent the final months of her life building a shield around you." The room became silent. She knew the world could be cruel. She wanted you protected. But real love never asks you to destroy the protection someone who loves you built. I placed the folder in front of Emily. "Open it." Her hands trembled. The first document was a translated fraud notice. Her eyes moved across the page. Then came the photographs. Sebastian, Nina, together in Munich. Emily's face lost its color. Then she found the immigration paperwork. Except it wasn't what Sebastian had told her. It was a power of attorney designed to give him access to her trust. She looked up. "What is this?" Sebastian exploded. He shouted that everything was fabricated. He accused me of hating his family. He accused me of attacking his German heritage. Then he dropped to his knees. "Emily, please." His parents started shouting too. They demanded hotel security remove me. But I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I simply picked up the original bank notice. Then I spoke. In flawless German. I read the debt, the legal warning, the fraud allegation. Every detail, every word. The ballroom became completely silent. Sebastian stared at me. For the first time, he understood. I hadn't suddenly learned German. I had understood him from the beginning. Every insult, every joke, every plan, every word spoken behind Emily's back. His face changed. His confidence disappeared. His mother went pale. His father stopped talking. Then the ballroom doors opened. Victoria Hayes walked inside. She carried another folder. And Sebastian suddenly realized the nightmare wasn't over. It was only beginning. Victoria walked calmly to the table. She introduced herself as senior legal counsel. Then she explained what Sebastian had signed. The investment agreement wasn't what he thought. Buried inside it was a sworn federal financial disclosure. Sebastian had declared that he had no pending criminal investigations anywhere in the world, but investigations existed, and he knew it. That meant his signature had created a serious legal problem. Then Victoria explained the second clause, the marital asset waiver. Sebastian had permanently surrendered any claim to Emily's trust fund, wedding or no wedding. The money he had spent months planning to steal was already beyond his reach. Sebastian stared at her. You can't do this. Victoria didn't blink. I didn't do anything to you. She pointed toward the contract. You signed it. That sentence destroyed him. His parents began arguing. Sebastian tried to explain. He claimed he had been confused. He claimed the documents were misleading. But his earlier confidence had vanished. Emily stood completely still. Then she looked at him. Not at the businessman he pretended to be. Not at the loving fiancé she thought she knew. She looked at the real man. A fraud. A liar. A thief. Someone who had targeted her because he believed she was vulnerable. Her voice was quiet. Get out. Sebastian shook his head. Emily, listen to me. No. One word. That was all. He stepped toward her. She stepped back. Don't come near me again. Her parents tried to intervene, but Victoria stopped them. She calmly explained that Sebastian's immigration status had already been flagged. The German authorities were pursuing the financial crimes connected to him. The empire he had invented was collapsing in front of 50 witnesses. His parents quietly left the ballroom. There was no dramatic goodbye, no final speech. They simply disappeared. Within weeks, federal agents detained Sebastian. Germany issued an extradition request connected to the embezzlement investigation. He was deported to Munich in handcuffs, not as the successful entrepreneur he had pretended to be, as a disgraced fugitive. His parents lost their business. Their debts caught up with them. The money they had planned to steal from Margaret's daughter was never touched. But the greatest victory wasn't seeing Sebastian arrested. It was watching Emily survive. Because she had almost lost everything. Not just money. Her trust. Her confidence. Her ability to believe her own instincts. And for a while, she blamed herself. She grieved quietly. Not for Sebastian. For the future she thought she had. I didn't lecture her. I didn't say, I told you so. I simply made coffee. I kept food on the stove. And I waited, because sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about giving the person you love enough truth to rebuild themselves. Weeks passed. One evening I found Emily sitting at the kitchen table. The wedding dress was still hanging in the other room. Unworn, she looked exhausted. Dad? I sat across from her. She apologized. Not once, several times. She apologized for doubting me outside the restaurant. She apologized for believing Sebastian's story. And finally, she told me she had gone to the bank herself. She had confirmed everything. She had seen exactly how close she had come to losing the legacy her mother had built for her. Then she whispered, "How did I miss all of it?" I reached across the table. Because predators don't walk into your life looking like predators. They look like the person you hoped they were. She cried. I didn't tell her to stop. I didn't tell her to become colder. Instead, I told her something I had learned after 72 years. Her ability to love wasn't her weakness. It was one of her greatest strengths. She simply needed boundaries strong enough to protect it. A few days later, we sat together on the back porch. It was the same porch where Margaret and I had spent countless evenings. The sky turned gold, then purple. Emily told me she was taking a month away from everything. She wanted to travel alone. Think, heal, discover who she was without Sebastian. I listened, and for the first time in years I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace, not revenge, not victory. Peace. I had kept the promise I made to Margaret years earlier. Protect our daughter. But I didn't protect Emily by controlling her life. I protected her by standing beside her until she could see clearly again. Sebastian thought my silence meant weakness. His parents thought my age meant ignorance. They thought a quiet old man was powerless. They were wrong. I simply understood something they didn't. Arrogant people reveal themselves when they believe nobody is watching. You don't always have to fight them. Sometimes you let them talk. Let them brag. Let them underestimate you. Let them become comfortable. Because eventually, arrogance makes people careless. And careless people leave evidence. Sebastian built his own trap. He signed his own documents. He exposed his own lies. And when the moment came, I didn't need to scream. I only needed to open the folder. That was my revenge. Not cruelty. Not violence. Truth, if this story taught me anything, it's that being underestimated can sometimes become your greatest advantage. And love without boundaries can become dangerous. So protect the people you love. But never confuse protection with control. And if someone ever makes you feel foolish for trusting your instincts, remember this: you don't always need to prove them wrong immediately. Sometimes you need to stay calm, watch, wait, and let the truth do the damage. If this story gave you chills, hit the like button, subscribe to Dad's Cold Revenge, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you discovered the person your child loved was secretly using them? And remember, the most satisfying revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one holding all the cards.